Jan and I played in a jazz group at Easton Church with George de Lima, Stephen Hewitt, Peter and Zing Eagling and Michael Allen. We called ourselves the Seraphim Stompers, and the money raised at the service was given to Amnesty International. This led to us forming a jazz group in the Bramerton group of parishes, and we were soon playing at harvest suppers and other socials. After one practice at Peter's home, there was a thunderstorm raging as we drove home. The lightning made the windscreen wipers look like strobe lights, and somehow it also gave me a charge because I played the game on my Casio calculator when I got back and obtained my highest score ever. We visited London together on 2 occasions, the first time taking in Joseph and his amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, Buddy, Phantom of the Opera and Starlight Express. Bumped into Auntie Edna on a shopping trip from Bournemouth in Selfridges. Took a rowing boat on the Serpentine, and after a trip to Petticoat Lane walked back along the river and paddled in the fountain pool at Trafalgar Square. We also took in the planetarium and Madame Tussauds, and visited the mummies at the British Museum. On our second trip we visited the Tower of London. Next we took the Docklands Light Railway to Canary Wharf, Greenwich and the Cutty Sark. We saw an Inspector Calls, separate tables and Woman in Black. After visiting Buckingham Palace, while Jan took Catherine into Kensington to search for hair extensions, Paul and I took the tube to Brixton, where we visited a pub and a McDonald's, and hardly saw another white face. The following day we visited Little Venice, and then Covent Garden. Paul and I went to the Spitting Image exhibition, while Jan and Catherine went on a second trip for hair extensions. During my time as a curate I trained as a counsellor at the St Barnabas Centre in Norwich, and as well as seeing clients, also attended supervision meetings. I also attended a series of Myers-Briggs workshops run by Sheila Phillips and Bill Scott, my spiritual director. My personality profile came out as INFJ. It was a very helpful experience, especially when we were shown the value of each attribute, and the value to a team of being made up of different personality types. Having been brought up in a world where the extrovert is seen as being preferable to the introvert, it was good to be told, with the extrovert, what you see is what you get. With the introvert, the best is yet to come. I attempted to encourage Paul and Catherine to save their money by opening Chris's Bank, which offered a very attractive rate of interest of 5% per month. Paul took advantage of this, but Catherine was unable to leave the money in long enough to earn any interest. Prospective chaplains for Butlands were offered free holidays, so we booked in at Skegness. There was no requirement of me to lead services, However, there was no sign of a minister at the camp church on Sunday. On discovering this, a little boy who was reluctantly there with his parents leapt for joy. I didn't have the heart to volunteer my services. So it was a week of Big Splash, table tennis, snooker, badminton, shows, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves and Ghost. The final show was called Beat the Clock, hosted by Jim Bowen, who obviously did not have his heart in it. The time had come for us to own 2 cars again. Once we had established that it was a Nissan Micra that we wanted, I rang around the country for the best deal. A London agency would produce a car for £5,865, and a few days later, having obtained a Darson loan, a lady with a Harrods bag drove the car to Surlingham. We took out a mortgage on a 2-bedroom terraced house in Hopton-on-Sea, with a view to renting it out. An agent found us new tenants, who turned out to be 2 young men working as salesmen at the nearby caravan site. Against our better judgment, we agreed to the tenancy, but soon found out that we were not receiving rent, that the lawns were not being mown, and that a girlfriend had moved in. One of the tenants lost his job, a very late cheque bounced, and the bank charged us £8. We told the remaining tenant that he had to move out, and went over to mow the lawns and tidy up as he left. It was then that a neighbour told us that our tenants had had a very noisy party, and that someone had kicked their cat door in. We paid the £11 for a new one, and then confronted Tom, the tenant. He said that he would send the money on to us that he owed. We said no way, and accompanied him to the bank's cash machine, a steep learning curve. Steve Hewitt was appointed as rector of a Warwick parish, and I was told by Bishop Hugo to have a look at the Waveney group of parishes on the Norfolk-Suffolk border. I was told by Archdeacon Peter Dawson that the Waveney group was the land of the Majors. A few weeks later, at an interview with the wardens, I asked them how they saw my role, and one of the Majors, Simon Crisp, suggested cure of all souls. Later, Jan and I had lunch with John and Maria Phillips, who had lived at the rectory in Geldeston 30 years previously. We found a 4-foot grass snake in the pond chasing a toad. Later we saw it lounging in the tree above the pond. The snake seemed to be looking for water, as all the local streams had dried up. We were invited to farewell meals by the Thompsons and the Saunders. The jazz group had improved greatly since Mike, a flute and saxophone player, joined us. We took part in a super curry and jazz evening at Rockland and helped to raise funds at a PTA event for Rockland School. Kathleen phoned to tell us that Richard, Caroline's fiancé, had died in a glider accident. He had been instructing someone who fell onto the joystick and would not let go. Caroline witnessed the crash, ran down the hill and held his dead body until the ambulance and my parents arrived. As Richard was being moved into the ambulance, Dad asked the medics to let Caroline give him one more kiss. Then time seemed to stand still, Caroline said, as Dad said a prayer of committal. Richard, go forth to the land of the Holy Trinity, where is the Father, your Creator, the Son, your Redeemer, and the Holy Spirit, your guide. We all attended Richard's funeral at Wentworth Church, where I read Psalm 139, which had been planned for the wedding there. Our goodbye service was held at Surlingham. At the buffet afterwards, I was presented with a prayer desk, communion set, and a watercolour painting of Surlingham Church. On the last night, Sally Barham gave us a meal, and on arriving in Geldeston, Lorna Pugh, Sally's golfing friend, gave us another meal. Both were very welcome after 2 busy days of packing and unpacking. Many people called in with vegetables, cakes and good wishes. A plumber and a carpenter made kitchen alterations. The Beccles and Bungay Journal included an article about us. After a deanery day with Bishop Hugo, Jan and I were invited to lunch at his home, Rectory Meadow.
Again, please.
Number 12.
Cedric, where was John Bunyan when he began writing his Pilgrim's Progress?
He was in prison.
Yes, in Bedford. A number, please.
Number 6.
Two weeks after moving into our new home, Mum and Dad came to stay before the licensing service conducted by Bishop Hugo on the 22nd of September. 12 friends came along from the Bramerton group. I wasn't sure how many times to ring the church bell, having heard that the number of rings foretells the number of years in the parish. So I rang it 10 times to show willing. It was a wonderful and moving start to our time in the Waveney group of parishes.
Hey, where did we go? Days when the rain came down in the hollow, playing a new game, laughing and running, skipping and jumping in the misty morning morning. Something with you, my brown-eyed girl. Whatever happened, Tuesday so slow, going down the old line with a transistor radio, standing in the sunlight laughing, and rainbows fall, with his hair sliding all along the waterfall with you, my brown-eyed girl. You're my brown-eyed girl. Do you remember when we used to sing sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la So hard to find my way now that I'm on my own. Saw you just the other day.